Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So, finally, the Supreme Court have come to a decision of what is a woman. Some people agree, some people disagree. But hey, GB News seems to agree, right? I'm not surprised. That's what we're about to check out right now. Remember, if you like the content, drop a like. And if you want to see more content like this, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it.
Well, Nina, in the spirit of this discussion, I think it's only right that I get to you first on this.
Thank
Look,
you.
How do you feel about today's ruling, really, and what's led us up here?
My mother was a science teacher. She was a biology teacher. I'm a journalist. Facts mean everything to me. So you put those two together, and this is just pure common sense. It's pure biology. Women are women. Having said that, the one thing the judge said was that this should not be a matter for one side being triumphant over the other. It was a matter of clarification. And what I really worry about...
No, it's not though. For you guys, it's absolute emphatic victory. These people, right, they wanted an emphatic victory. They don't care about like what other people feel like. There is no shred of empathy towards anyone that disagrees. It's just emphatic victory. And you can see how jubilant they are. You can see how happy they are with that decision. So don't ever try to paint a picture that it isn't the case, okay? You're very much satisfied and happy with that victory.
Is the fact that there will be some kind of backlash against trans women. And the trouble is that you looked at the politicians tripping over their words. That was pure politics, because all those dates that you showed, Keir Starmer going blah, 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 and Rachel Reeves looking completely embarrassing. They were at a situation, it's pure politics, they were at a situation where they were trying to squash the left of the party, which they managed to do, while at the same time keeping things going.
They were also afraid. They were also clearly afraid of going the same way as people like J.K. Rowling, who managed to survive because she got uncancelable levels of money, right? And didn't really seem to care because she believed in what she was standing up for. Mark, I rattled off quite a few politicians there, as Nina alluded to. I mean, do you think they need to apologise now? And people lost their jobs over these views. People lost in some cases, their partners. People stopped talking to their kids over it. People lost friend groups. People lost money. You know, how do we make it up to those people?
I think it's very difficult, Patrick, because although I'm pleased about the decision, we should take some time to reflect on how mad this country is, that a court needed to reach this decision.
I mean, it says that, right? Like, this is something that the far right, generally the right usually like says like, oh my God, it's such common sense. Oh my God, how could you not say this before? Oh my God, like, how is it that we actually need in a court decision to make this decision, right? This country is going crazy. But this is not the only country it's actually happening in. It's also happening in America. It's also happening in Canada. Like the major superpowers in the West, typically there's actually this problem there. So it isn't like, oh my God, there's actually something wrong with this country. Like, it's just not the case. It's not.
What next? The Supreme Court's going to say Galileo was right, the world is actually spherical, it's not flat, and then politicians will have to go along with it. Newton's law of gravity is true. Is that we're going to rely on a court to say this sort of stuff? So the politicians, in some ways, are not bound by this. If you're determined to believe that the world is flat, or that trans women are women rather than men, you can keep believing that. It is crazy it's taken a court to decide this. It's not obvious to me that Ed Davey, David Lammy or Rachel Reeves will change their opinions based on it any more than they would change their opinions on any other scientific matter because of a court ruling.
I do wonder if there's an irony that they actually didn't believe the guff they were saying to begin with. And
I think Nina's right.
They felt they had to say
They were walking a sort of thin line. They were determined not to offend anybody. But unfortunately, that meant that they were not willing to share the basic scientific truth with the British people. It is a victory for science over people who don't believe in science.
Yeah, Rob, your views.
I find it so odd when people say that. They always use science as a justification. Science. But, like, when people go about their normal life, we don't need science to be able to verify someone is a man or a woman. There are typically other metrics that we use. The way they look, the way they walk, the way they dress, like the tone of the voice. Like, there are other things we use. The science part that's using to describe what a woman is, we as normal people, we never use that to be able to verify someone as a man or a woman. There are different metrics we use in our everyday life. So I find it so weird when they keep referring to science every single time. Why do they keep doing that?
Isn't this? Is it a victory for common sense? Do you think it could go further? How do you feel?
I think it's a victory for common sense. I think it's good for sport because now we know what sex we're watching and we can choose quite easily in sport. I think it was ridiculous. I think it was very political. And hallelujah, now we can protect women properly. And I agree, it doesn't have to be a loss for the transgender community. There's solutions which you mentioned about having the third toilet. But finally, women can feel a bit safe. And hallelujah for people like J.K. Rowling, who will...
What do you mean by they can feel safe? What is that? I don't understand what they mean by that. If anyone is going to attack women in their spaces, they will do it regardless if transgender people are allowed or not. I don't really understand. On those people that are trans men, does that mean that people that have actually gone through the stage of transitioning from a woman to a man, does that mean they're going to be allowed in women's toilets? Like, I don't get, like, they put too much emphasis on this stuff. Really too much. It's like, hey, you can have trans men, trans women, hey, but you can't go into the female spaces. That's it. Like, it's so simple. You can have both.
Speak out and put her reputation and career really on the line. Just because she's uncancelable doesn't mean she's uncancelable.
Yeah, I get what you mean. She's still affects.
I think we should be
It's hurt her a lot
Yeah.
to speak common sense.
I think we should be a bit careful about this. I'm not totally sure it does change sports. I think individual sports can still run their own sporting codes. I'm not sure this judgment changes that.
I think it does. I think it does.
Isn't it?
If a
Sure.
I think it
particular
does.
sport wants to, I mean, for example, horse racing, men and women compete together. So
That's
it's not
different from boxing, isn't
No,
it?
it is different from
Exactly.
boxing.
Well, not if you
But,
ask the
well, I
Olympics.
don't think we have male versus female boxing anyway. It's not completely obvious to
No,
me
we,
that, say,
no,
the
we,
Olympic...
have, we
the
did have
Olympic-
male versus female. We did in
Right,
the
okay,
Olympics.
but it's not obvious to me the Olympic Committee is bound by this ruling.
Yep.
But it's a
I honestly...
precedent, though, sure.
Well, I mean, it's a
No,
statement of biological...
And I feel like that right there, right, that's typically where the argument stems from, right? It's not true that they believe women are like these biological differences. They don't actually believe that. The reason why they're supporting these court decisions is because they want to protect women's spaces. And that's totally fine. You can have both. You can class these people as women and also protect women's spaces. You can totally have both. These two things are not mutually exclusive. They really aren't.
I think it will. I think it will put a tin lid on that. I think it
Right.
absolutely will
Certainly
do.
hope so.
No, because this is nuts. Because men are physically stronger than women. I mean, the testosterone actually
You would have
gives
thought
men.
we would have recognised that before today, wouldn't you?
Well, absolutely.
Well,
but of course, it's quite right.
Because what do you hope this what happens now? Because you're right, people were celebrating, for women, Scotland deserve a huge amount of credit, all of their associates deserve a huge amount of credit, but this needs to go further now. We need to get men out of women's sports, I think, do we? We need to get men out of women's changing rooms, all of that stuff.
Certainly out of women's changing rooms. Now, at the same time as I say this, I have a friend who transitioned 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and she, you would never, the idea of women's changing rooms being assaulted by a predatory man in a frock is so far removed.
It's so weird that, like, these people believe anyone that transitions from a woman to a man or from a man to a woman is just a predator. That's the reason why they're doing it. They actually take it into consideration that these people, they feel the societal pressures of what a man is, so they will rather be a woman. They don't actually believe these people are actually doing it from a genuine reason. They actually believe everyone that transitions from a man to a woman is doing it for predatory reasons. It's such a naive and like stupid way of looking at things. How could you just think everyone going through a period of transition is just doing it for malicious reasons, just so they can get into women's toilets? Like, how can you actually think this? Genuinely, it's insane. They believe everyone that transition is doing it because they're malicious, evil people, because they're predators. Come on.
From this friend of mine, and so there are cases. There are genuine people who have transitioned, who should be regarded in the way they choose to be regarded.
She should be allowed into the women's changing rooms.
Yes.
Really? How are we going to make that distinction?
This is the problem. The point being that what women fear is not a woman who has transitioned surgically. They fear a man who has not transitioned surgically in a dress, because what they fear is the penis as a weapon. Let's be honest about it. So how do we? So exactly. So how do we judge this? How do we judge
We
this?
have a very simple rule. if you're biologically male, you're not allowed into the female bathroom.
Well, then by the same
I
rule.
promise I wouldn't be predatory if I walked into a women's changing room, but I don't think that means I should be allowed in.
No, but then that means that trans men should be allowed into a female changing room who look like a man, you know, beard.
Exactly.
You know.
Biological sex is determinant.
Yes, so I don't particularly want a trans man in my in.
That's the really good point. That means people that have gone through the transition of woman to a man, they're not going to be allowed into women toilets. Is that really what we're saying here?
In the same loo as me.
I'll just go, Rob. Do you think that maybe this is a signal that we're past peak woke? Do you think, or do you just think this is just a bit of a sticking plaster?
It does feel like a moment. Yeah, it does. Victory for common sense and victory for logic and reality. It does feel like a watershed moment, actually.
I find it so odd that these people, they're so obsessed about the toilets and about the changing room, and then this and that, and then the man's gonna be there. Like, all the argument is based on a man entering into the changing room. That's it. That's the only thing they care about. It just seems weird that they believe all these people are just malicious people, they're just predators, just want to prey on women. Like, it's just very weird, but that's just my thoughts on it. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to the channel. If you have any difference in opinions, put it down in the comments below.